How you doing, everybody? John Arezzi here, back for another edition of Pro Wrestling Spotlight live here on Facebook and also YouTube. We are here to have another show with you today. And first and foremost, it's been a sad week in professional wrestling. Road Warrior Animal passed away this week. So we certainly send our condolences out to his family, his friends, all the fans that revered him and Hawk as the Legion of Doom and their fantastic career. So we're going to focus on that in the program as well. So we have a jam-packed show with you today. Greg Oliver from Slam Wrestling is going to join us today. Also, we have a special guest who has never joined us before, and Griff Henderson is his name, and he is a morning show host at Jack 92.9 in Halifax. Alex is going to join us with the news of the week. So we have a lot to talk about this week on the show. As we were going on the air, I was listening to a tribute on Long Island for Mickey B., who passed away last week. Mickey B was a dear friend of my family's, and he was also a person instrumental in helping Pro Wrestling Spotlight. But even more important than that, he was the guy that introduced Captain Lou Albano to Cyndi Lauper on that airplane trip back from Puerto Rico in 1983, and led to that introduction and could have really been instrumental in the rock and wrestling connection. Also, this morning, more very sad news. A good friend, radio friend of mine and my sister's, Rob Shante, who I worked with at a couple of different radio stations back on Long Island, he passed away. Suddenly, we don't know how yet, but Rob was the dad of an independent wrestler, Danny Jordan, who was competing on the independent circuit out of Georgia. She's done some AEW stuff. I saw her compete here in Nashville several months ago when they came in for their TV. So just a really sad week. So I'm going to lighten it up a little bit because I'm going to be bringing back for the first time in a long time. Let's bring back Mr. Dominic DiBiase, producer Dominic. Dominic, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be back in the producer's chair.
How many weeks has it been that you've been joining us?
It's been a very long time. And
yeah, it seems like ages.
It does. It feels too long, but I'm happy to be back. But I miss you being right next to you in the clubhouse.
Yeah, the clubhouse is down there, and right before our broadcast started, our Mets lost.
Yes, officially eliminated from the playoffs, unfortunately.
So that's it. It's done. Season's over for them. They lasted till the very last weekend. It wasn't even a real season if you look at it, but they whimpered out today, and with just a little bit of a whimper. Jacob deGrom wasn't really Jake. He struck out him over 10, I think. But hopefully Dominic Smith is okay because he crashed into that wall and led to that inside the park home run. So let's close the book on the 2020 Mets, and now we'll start thinking about next year, and hopefully things will get better with new ownership.
Hopefully. I think we should just close out 2020 in general. It's been a rough year.
Goodness, it's 2020 is horrible.
It has been
horrible. So
but I'm happy to be back.
Yes, happy to have you back, and I know you'll be looking at all the comments, and we'll bring you back in a little bit. We're going to bring you on, not tremendously sad news, but something that certainly disrupted our show today. We initially had booked a wrestler, former wrestler, a guy named Jeff Miller, the Metal Maniac. Dominic, and I'm going to put you down in the air. Talk to you in a little bit, my friend. It's good to see you. You're looking good.
Thank you. I'm wearing your shirt.
T-shirt. There you go. Stand up for a second and show everybody that shirt.
There it is.
tinyurl.com/PWS store. Get that T-shirt. They're limited editions. All right, talk to you in a bit, Dom. So Jeff Miller, who's somebody I knew for many, many years. If you're not familiar with Jeff, there he is with his dear friend, the late Jimmy Superfly Snuka. And Jeff became kind of Snooker's booker and handler in a lot of ways. And Jeff was going to come on the show because he found me after 20-something years. He said he was looking for me. I didn't know money. But Jeff wanted to tell a couple of stories about Snuka and how impactful Weekend of Champions convention was for Jeff. He got a lot of national exposure there and made some great connections. But also, I booked both of them on a show in Joplin, Missouri, in 1995, and Jeff said it was a show and it was a match that really impacted Jimmy, and that he remembered this show till the day he died, and he didn't remember a lot when he passed on. So Jeff was supposed to be on today, and he had a heart attack this week. So he is here. He's in the hospital. Here's Jeff there. There's another picture in the early days. I'm choking out Bill Apter. But he cut a video for us from the hospital, and I want to play that for you now. So bear with me, and we'll put this on. And we're going to bring him on as soon as he recovers from this. So it was a sudden thing. And, life is so precious, and every day is a gift. Especially this has been so many losses this week, personally, professionally. But let me share the screen, and always try to do this right here. Put this here. I will share this, and we will play this little clip.
Maniac, the greatest ever, coming to you live for the Pinnacle Professional Wrestling right here in my hospital room. I had a heart attack the day before yesterday, small blockage, and I had to have a stent put in. Today, John has advertised me to be there. I can't paint my face. This is the Metal Maniac, the greatest ever, coming to you live for the Pinnacle Professional Wrestling right here in my hospital room. I had a heart attack the day before yesterday, small blockage, and I had to have a stent put in. Today, John has advertised me to be there. I can't paint my face, and I can't be there today, but I'm going home in the next few days, and hopefully by this time next week, I'll be able to give you the interview you've been looking for. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much to John and all the wrestling fans there, and love you guys very much. Please understand, having a heart attack was not expected. So just know, the Maniac, it will be back. Aloha.
Jeff, the Metal Maniac, always a character and a funny guy, but we wish him well, speedy recovery. And when he told me these stories about Snuka, when he reached out to me, it really almost brought a tear to my eye because I had no clue on how impactful this all was back in the day. Let's get right to the news with Alex Robertson from there you go. Thank you. Alex Robertson is joining us from Montreal, where I understand, boy, I tell you, it's 30 degrees there right now, isn't it?
It is, but 30 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. We're not that cold yet. It's not that time of year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to start soon enough. So enjoy the weather while you can up there in Montreal. How's everything up there other than that? I mean, it's been a busy week for sure.
Yeah, it's been a busy week in the wrestling world for sure. I mean, as you started off the podcast by saying, we lost Road Warrior Animal this week. Devastating, very, very sad. And I know that when I first, heard about him as a journalist getting into the business, he's a legend and he's a Hall of Famer. And then I learned more about him watching Dark Side of the Ring, because in the second season, they did a whole episode on the Road Warriors. So you got to see them outside of the ring, and maybe something that, not all of the wrestling fans get to see. So it was interesting to see both sides, and you truly appreciate the legend and the kind of athlete and competitor he was in the ring, for sure.
Very intense competitor, and a little scary sometimes, a little gruff, a little. And I'm sure we're going to go over some great stories with Greg and Griff coming up. But he was always a little someone that you would be a little intimidated around.
Absolutely, seems like it anyway.
Yeah, but good guy, and had wonderful career, and he's going to be sorely missed. I mean, when Hawk passed away several years ago, and I heard that, I was shocked. I mean, but now, both of them are gone. And that's truly sad. I mean, he did an appearance in New York not too long ago. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. He did a signing at the Wrestling Universe in Flushing, Queens, and with Paul Ellering, I believe. And so that probably was the very last personal appearance. And I know there were a lot of people there, socially distanced, and there was only one or two people allowed in the store at any given time. But sad to see him go. We're going to miss him very, very much, and we'll get into more of that with Greg and Griff coming up. What else is shaking this past week? There's a lot always going on. Seems to be more and more going on every week.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow we have the WWE pay-per-view Clash of Champions. And there's definitely some interesting matches that I am looking forward to, and I know a lot of people are too. One of them being for the Intercontinental Championship, which is going to be a 3-way match versus Jeff Hardy, Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles. And there was always a little bit of confusion because initially Sami Zayn had held the championship at one point, but he had to leave because of an injury and whatnot. So there's always there wasn't an undisputed champion. So these 3 guys were claiming they were all the Intercontinental champions. So it's all coming to a head now, and they're going to battle it out tomorrow. And whoever wins this match will be the undisputed champion. And I have to note that there will be 2 belts involved because Sami Zayn somehow still has his belt. And Jeff Hardy has his. So the winner will have to grab not 1, but 2 of the belts in order to be declared the champion. So interesting matchup, I would say.
That's an interesting angle for sure. And I really have enjoyed watching the progression of Sami. Mm-hmm. I've always respected him, thought he was a great worker inside the ring. But seeing how zany he's become, Sami Zayn, it's been really fun to watch. And, you throw AJ in and Jeff, I mean, it has the makings of a really spectacular match tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to disappoint. I'm very much looking forward to see how that turns out. And another match that I'm looking forward to is another SmackDown match, Roman Reigns versus his cousin Jey Uso. So that's going to be interesting. Like it's a family feud. It's I don't know if this is something that's necessarily been brewing for a long time, but both of these athletes are very talented, and it should be interesting. And I don't know if Paul Heyman is going to have a hand in this match at all. Is he going to try and interfere somehow? I mean, we'll see. Like we were discussing last week, we know that Roman Reigns can hold his own. He's not like a Brock Lesnar who can't talk and who needs a voice or a mouthpiece. He can do everything on his own, and he has proven that. So now it's just seeing whether or not Paul Heyman is going to intervene, and if he does, how Roman will react to that. Yeah. That's what I'm interested to see as well.
Yeah, so those 2 matches are worth the price of admission, so to speak, for Clash of the Champions. And I can never get used to saying Clash of the Champions with WWE attached to it, because it was such a staple for the NWA and WCW back in the day. But I'll be watching it. I'm looking forward to it, and especially those 2 matches that you highlighted.
Yeah, and I mean, there are others. I mean, we do have the Hurt Business versus Retribution. And
I hate that Retribution stuff, man. I just don't like it.
And you know what, to be honest with you, at first, when they weren't exactly called Retribution and there were lights going off and, weird things were happening, I genuinely thought it was like a technical error. I really thought that something was going on backstage, or they had some sort of like hurricane going on in Florida. Like I didn't know what was going on. But now that they have emerged. We're starting to see who some of the characters are behind the mask. So it's going to be interesting to see, if they lose the match against the Hurt Business, what's going to happen? And if they do win, what's going to happen? Where does this go from here? So it needs to be a storyline that has to be expanded somehow. It's just, I don't know really which way it's going to go yet.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be surprising. It was kind of interesting that I was on, as I am every day, on Twitter, and I saw a tweet that Sean Waltman had, because he communicated, I guess, with one of the guys from Retribution, and he said they were out to destroy the WWE except for one guy, and it was kind of Sean. And Sean was like, "Well, I'm here if you ever need me." So, I mean, that went back and forth on Twitter, and I was like, "That's interesting," because Sean is still affiliated with them. Yeah, that's true. That's a good comment there. It didn't make any sense for Retribution to get rewarded with contracts. I thought that was ridiculous, but we'll see where it goes. I mean, it's a bizarre storyline, and hopefully it'll come and there'll be some interesting developments for it. But right now, I don't like it.
I mean, it might be something that fizzles out. We have seen that before, but I somehow don't think that it's going to fizzle out anytime soon. But like I said, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
What else is going on? Anything else?
Yeah. This week at AEW, there have been some rumors swirling around lately that COVID-19 has become an issue once again. And we did see on social media this past week that the Murder Hawk, Lance Archer, said that he had been in contact with somebody who had COVID-19 and then subsequently tested positive for it. So he stayed away from Jacksonville altogether. And he was actually supposed to have a match this week against Jon Moxley for the AEW title. So that posed as a problem. But Eddie Kingston took his place. And I want to say that I was surprised, but I'm not really surprised that Eddie Kingston took his place. I've always thought that Eddie Kingston was a great performer, and they did put on a good match. So I was happy to see that at least if they were going to replace him with somebody else, that they did so with somebody who has a lot of chemistry with Moxley, which clearly they did. So that's great. But of course, we hope that Lance Archer recovers and gets back to the ring as soon as he can.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be, from the rumor mill that's circulating out there seems to be a bit of an outbreak in AEW right now. We don't know how many people have been affected or have tested positive for COVID. We'll have to wait and see. One other thing from the Twitter machine, as they say, Jerry Briscoe, who was let go by Vince McMahon several weeks ago, has been tweeting some interesting things on Twitter that he's got a big announcement to make. And Wednesday night, Jerry lives in Florida. AEW's in Florida. The tweets that have been sent out have Tony Khan and various play on words. So Jerry, I would be very happy for him if he jumped right over to AEW after Vince McMahon let him go after 40 years of service.
I mean, what a great addition he would be to a company like that, right? I mean, any company altogether, but especially one like that. I wouldn't be surprised. I think that would be a good move for him.
I think so. He's a great developer of talent, and he's got a keen eye for talent, not just on the amateur ranks, but in the pros. And he's done so much for the wrestling business. And the way he left the WWE after so many years of service certainly left a lot to be desired for people who have followed Jerry. And now the fact that he may jump ship to AEW, or just now that he's a free agent, I would love to see that happen, actually see Jerry involved with AEW.
Definitely. And one little thing that I want to mention about social media, and I was reading something on Instagram today, and I thought it was very interesting. So a couple months ago, actually, when I first started doing this podcast with you, we were talking about the speaking out movement and a bunch of wrestlers that were coming out about different incidents and what have you. And unfortunately, Tessa Blanchard was inadvertently involved in all of this. A bunch of wrestlers came out calling her a racist and saying that she was a problem behind the scenes and whatnot. And she kind of took a hiatus from social media for a very long time. Of course, she's not with Impact anymore. But I saw on social media this morning that she posted a picture on Instagram and saying how she was, been gone for so long because she was focusing on her wedding. She was focusing on her honeymoon, and she was focusing on getting back to who she was and who she really was before all of this ever happened, before she got into the business, and kind of saying that, you know, a lot of people were telling me these things that I had to do on a daily basis. And now I'm going to take back control of my life and my career, and it's going to be me from here on out. So there's a lot of ambiguity there. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with her next. Although I feel that because she's a really talented wrestler, it would be such a shame for her talent to go to waste and for her not to wrestle at all. I just think she's in a very precarious situation right now with the reputation that she has. So we'll see what happens with her. But I think it's definitely something that I'm going to keep an eye on, because she may just pop up somewhere. I mean, we saw the other week how Miro, who was formerly Rusev, just popped up into AEW. So we don't know what's going to happen week to week. So I think it's an interesting development, I would say.
Yeah, it is. Hope to have her back soon. And because she's one of the best female talents out there, one of the best talents in general out there. Yeah. So hope to get her back soon and get her back in the national spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Impact, actually, it was kind of a brighter story. Kylie Ray from Impact announced that she is engaged.
Yes.
She got engaged this week, and she is going to be challenging Deonna Purrazzo for the Knockouts title in about a month from now at their next pay-per-view in Nashville. So that should be interesting too. I mean, she's proven that she's a good contender. She's proven that she can get in the ring and rough up just about anybody. So I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that pay-per-view, because as the weeks go on, they start to announce more matches. Yep. And I think it's definitely one to watch if you follow Impact. It's definitely one that you should keep an eye on. Yeah,
pound for pound, she's one of the best as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll look forward to that. And Alex, as we do each and every week, we really appreciate your time. And you're with SlamWrestling.net. You know, one of the members of that great organization with such incredible journalists covering every aspect of the pro wrestling business. SlamWrestling.net, and we're going to bring you back next Saturday for more of the news. So it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, John.
All right, take care.
You too.
Alex Robertson, SlamWrestling.net. And speaking of SlamWrestling.net, the dude who is kind of the guy in charge there, another Canadian up there in Canada. How you doing there, Toronto?
Yeah, who are in the playoffs, remember? How about those Blue Jays? So we'll be jumping on the bandwagon here in Toronto. It's the first.
Did the Blue Jays get in?
They did, yeah. We got such a young team. It's going to build good potential for the future. And who knows? I mean, given shorter playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, hey, wait a second here. Dominic, the Blue Jays got a shot this year.
They actually were my underdog pick at the beginning of the year. I like their team.
There you go.
Dominic
knows his baseball, too.
They can do it. We'll see. So that's our happiness here in Toronto. We'll see.
There you go. Well, the Mets got eliminated today, so that's the end of that. But Greg, you're up there, and we had a really bad week news-wise in pro wrestling. Road Warrior Animal, Joe Laurinaitis, I'm sorry, brother of John, passed away this week, and it was really, really sad to hear that news. I know we have another gentleman coming on, and his name is Griff Henderson, and he's another reporter and also a talk show host. We're going to bring Griff on now. Griff, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Great to be here. I got to say, when Greg asked me to appear tonight, I thought, cool to meet John. I've got plenty of photos with your name on the back, so follow you on social media. It's a real pleasure.
Very,
to be here.
Very cool. Thank you. And I love your office there.
Yeah, this is the Wrestle Cave.
Wow. I had when I lived on Long Island, when I was in the business full time back in the day in the 90s, I had a similar, not as many as you, but I mean, that was kind of my office. And that is quite the array of photographs there.
Yeah, you could say it that way. That's a very polite way of saying it. Thank you. My wife and kids have a different take on it, but yeah, this is my little happy place.
There you go. That you have to have your happy place, but you are a wrestling archivist. You're a collector. You're another historian, and you host a morning show at Jack 92.9 in Halifax. What type of format is that station?
We play 80s, 90s, 70s, that kind of a thing, all mixed together.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. How do you know Greg?
Greg and we dated briefly in junior high.
Oh, really?
No. I actually, years ago, when I owned the old Toronto Canadian title, I think that's when I originally reached out to Greg looking for photos, and we had an online back and forth, and then he ended up featuring my story of the belt in one of his many great books, and yeah.
Wow. And you're also a big fan of the Road Warriors back in the day.
They were huge in my world. When they burst onto the scene, I think it was 85 when I first saw them wrestle for Pro Wrestling USA and for Vern in the AWA. I mean, I knew that these guys were, and the term's used a lot, but these guys were game changers. When they burst onto the scene and you heard Iron Man by Black Sabbath play, I mean, you couldn't help but get goosebumps.
First memories. Greg, what about you? What about the first memories you had of the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors?
Griff sort of hits it. It's you heard about these guys before you saw them, just because of we were in Canada, so we didn't have TBS, so you didn't get to see the Georgia Championship Wrestling. So there was a reputation that preceded them, and soon enough we got the AWA. Was on TSN at the time because it was the ESPN feed. I think that's probably where we saw them first. Mm-hmm. And I mean, those guys just dominated. And today we just don't see squash matches, as we call them. And that's how they built their reputation, right? They got in there, they demolished guys.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to watch. And it was not very long. It was a little bit Goldberg-esque. I guess they sort of did that a little bit with Goldberg. But they just dominated so much. And then when they finally got to the NWA. The AWA was great, but they didn't really have any competition, and they had to screw them out of the titles. And what was it, Steve Regal and who was the other guy? Jimmy Garvin?
Yeah, Garvin and Regal.
Like what a mistake of a tag team to beat the Road Warriors. It was such a screw job. But then they went to the NWA, and finally they had people that, lined up well against them. They had the Four Horsemen. They could face Dusty Rhodes, and then they had Nikita Koloff, all these different guys that really, lined up well against them, and Powers of Pain, and they weren't that back then, Faces of Fear. But there's so many different things for the Road Warriors to face in the NWA. That's, to me, where they really stood out. I never saw a lot of the Japanese stuff, but to me, they're an NWA team.
Yeah, they were just so powerful, imposing, and then when you heard that music hit, I mean, it pumped you up to see them come out and destroy. There was nothing like the Road Warriors' entrance in any way. I mean, I have to agree with that. They were just incredible. And with Paul Ellering, who actually was their real manager, that was another part of the equation, and one of the most devastating tag teams ever. And I know Greg is a young reporter. I think you were about 15 years old, just really getting your feet wet as a journalist, I think. And there was a story that at a Pro Wrestling Canada event in Ontario, and I believe the date was November 23rd, 1986. You and your best friend at the time, Serge, were there to get interviews with some of the wrestlers, and the Road Warriors, I guess, were on that card. And you were getting interviews for the Canadian Wrestling Reporter, and you had an opportunity that happened. Tell us what went on there with you and the Road Warrior Animal at the time.
Well, I mean, you're 15 years old. You're starting to do a newsletter, the Canadian Wrestling Report, and I happened to run into Angela Mosca and Milton Ruskin, who were running Pro Wrestling Canada. They invited me down to the taping in Kitchener, which was my hometown. Mm-hmm. And so we're backstage. It was really bizarre. But there was Road War Animal. There was an opportunity. And Serge was a lot braver than I was. And Serge went over and talked to him and did an interview with him, and I chickened out.
You
and
couldn't do
that
it.
sort of continued on. I didn't even talk to Ivan Koloff. That was Serge again. And I think I talked to Gino Burrito because he looked kind of benign. I guess he was an older guy at that point, father figure, not quite as intimidating as those other guys. But that's the thing. When you get in person and you see these guys, they were larger than life. And you can't say that about a lot of the wrestlers today. Just the indie scene has watered down everything. And it doesn't mean there's not good performers, but you just don't get as many as those larger than life guys.
Yeah, very, very true. I mean, don't get embarrassed about that when you were 15 years old. I mean, I remember going backstage when I was 14, 15 for the first times. And then even as a photographer for the magazines, I would be so intimidated to go up to them, and I'd tag along with George Napolitano and Bill Apter would be back there, and I'd put my microphone out while they were talking to the performers because I was intimidated and scared of a lot of the guys back then. So, and then you get older, and then you become more involved with the business, and then they become less frightening to you and less intimidating. And for one thing, Joe, I mean, I had interactions with him and Hawk and Michael, and they were nice. I had them at personal appearances back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight days, and they were great guys. And one person who introduced me to them early on was George Napolitano, and they were just dear friends of his as well. And such a big loss, but as rough and crazy as they were inside the ring, and don't piss them off backstage either, but they were legends. Griff, what kind of stories can you talk about when it comes to the Road Warriors?
Well, I can talk from the collecting perspective because they definitely left an imprint there. The first wrestling action figures of the Road Warriors were these guys, Remco from.
That's right.
Yeah. I was 15. I was on a family trip in Florida, and I was way too old for dolls, but I didn't care because it was the Road Warriors. So these were the original ones that they came out with for them. And then they came out with Jax and these ones many years later. These are modified to be more accurate, but you can see those.
Very nice, yeah.
And then most recently, the Mattel versions. These guys here were the most recent version of the LOD. But Road Warriors for me, I think about the fact that they left such an imprint in terms of copycats. Nobody in my opinion anyway, since Gorgeous George had such an array of copycats to follow. And that's the sincerest form of flattery is the imitation, I think. You had the Road Warriors, and you had Demolition, who I really wanted to hate because they were just ripping off the Road Warriors. But Bill Eadie and Barry Darsow were so great at it that I ended up loving Demolition as a result of. And then you had the Powers of Pain, Barbarian and Warlord, who, on the mic weren't Mike and Joe, and never really had the right mouthpiece to lead them. Paul Jones, rest his soul, was good in his own right, but not a great front man,
No.
And they were put with Mr. Fuji in the Federation, and, they never had their Paul Ellering. And then, of course, you had the Blade Runners, who would go on to Superstars, Ultimate Warrior, and Sting, but as a tag team, they never really got their due. But they, as I was saying, they led to so many copycats, and I could go on. Still to this day, I don't really follow the current product all that much, but I know in the last 10 years, there have been a couple of teams that I put on and went, oh, a couple more Road Warrior knockoffs. And that to me is a true, sign that these guys left a huge imprint.
Yep. As Captain Lou Albano used to say pretty famously, often imitated, never duplicated.
Absolutely.
The Road Warriors.
And they stuck together, too. That's the other thing. I mean, tag teams today, they seem to have a short lifespan, and then they got a feud. And we never got that Hawk versus Animal feud. And I think that makes them even more special.
Yeah. It's Dark Side of the Ring put together that episode last year. I mean, there was a little tension at times between them, but at the end of the day, they were dear friends, loved each other. They built something really special together. And, they will go down as one of the best tag teams in the history of our business. I mean, what impactful players that they both were. And
For the record, Steve Johnson and I had them number 2 all time in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the tag teams. And they were behind the Fabulous Kangaroos, who really established what tag team wrestling was.
Mhm.
And, it's really hard to compare different eras. But the Kangaroos set the standard for everybody to follow. The Road Warriors set their own template. And then number 3 were the British Bulldogs, who, again, the British Bulldogs are really what we see today. All that high flying, all that stuff they brought in from Japan is really what wrestling is today. So we saw the big jacked up guys like the Road Warriors, and then we melded it with the high flying, and we have what wrestling is today in a lot of ways.
Yep. Well, I mean, producer Dominic is down there scrolling at all the comments. And I mean, if you guys have any questions, Dan Brown, for example, his favorite memory, the Road Warriors beating the Nasty Boy SummerSlam 91. Yeah, that transition to the WWF at the time when that happened. I mean, there were rumors, floating around that they were going to go over and get into the WWF. And then when they made their debut there, of course, they were called the Legion of Doom. Any thoughts on when they left NWA and went into the WWF? For me, I mean, I was kind of like, I don't know if they were going to be treated right, but they went in there and were impactful as anything. Ellering, of course, wasn't brought along. He wasn't part of it. They didn't want him. Whoever the powers be that we know at the WWF didn't think Ellering would be a good part there, but they did create a lot of excitement. I think they debuted in the WWF. What was it? In 1990, wasn't it? 1990 or 91 or 90?
Thereabouts. Yeah, I'd have to look it up. But the thing is, it gave us fresh feuds, right? Fresh things for them to work with. How many times are they going to fight the Four Horsemen? So we got to see some new battles, and try to remember those early years when they were the Legion of Doom, because the later years when they had, Sonny in there as their manager, or different variations they did where they had draws as part of the team or whatever it was. It was not the same. Is that a good statement there, Griff?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I always felt that it was just a watered down version of the NWA Road Warriors, and especially what you saw in Japan. And it failed in comparison. For my money as a fan, I didn't like the fact that they changed the tights. I liked the traditional look. I didn't like the fact that they obviously couldn't use Iron Man, although their "Oh What a Rush" WWE theme was pretty cool too. Yes. But I always felt that they weren't their true selves like they were. Well, first things first, they didn't come in with Paul, and when they did, they stuck him with a ventriloquist dummy. No offense to Rocco, but
I tried to block that from my memory.
I blocked it from mine, actually. Yeah, that's right. Wow. Yeah. Wow. The legacy of the Road Warriors we're talking about here at Pro Wrestling Spotlight Live, and that scaffold match. Yes, with Midnight Express when Corny took the bump. Was that when Corny took the bump and blew his knee out? That scaffold.
So, yeah. So that's actually the cover of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the tag teams. It's Bobby Eaton hanging upside down on the scaffold from that bout. Yeah. But again, that was probably, it wasn't the first scaffold match by any means. And just like, the ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon wasn't the first, but those are the ones that sort of really set the standard, and everybody got to see them and on such a big scale with the NWA and the days of pay-per-view, right? Where you'd maybe gather at a local pizza parlor or at a friend's place and everybody threw in their $10 and ordered the pay-per-view.
Yes. What about the Spike in the Eye deal? I mean, that was...
well, there's so many different things they could have done. And again, wrestling back then it was tame compared to some things we see today, yet in other ways, it was sort of unregulated, right? So they could do things like that. It's like the plastic bag that Terry Funk put on Ric Flair's head. Like, those moments stick with us more than the average thing week to week because they stood out. They were really unique. Yeah,
and even when Jake had the snake and bit Macho Man on the arm, I mean, that was hard. Yeah, you remember that, and I was just like, oof. But those are the things. And the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, brought so many memories to, and it's still hard to believe. I mean, it's just it's very hard to believe that he's gone. Greg, I mean, with your site, slamwrestling.net, I mean, with the journalists that you have on staff and the coverage that you give it, I mean, there's a lot to digest now on slamwrestling.net when it comes to the career of the Road Warriors and to Animal, isn't there?
Well, yeah, and that was a big part of the priority when it happened. Is obviously I'm writing the story at the same time we're putting up the archives, and we still have 2,300 old stories to post. It's ridiculous. I don't think we have Griff's stories up. We'll have to do that after today because he's going to be a big internet celebrity now.
There you go.
But there is that aspect too, right? Because you talk to the guys through the years, and we were at the Hawk tribute show, which was in late. What was that? 2003. And it was in Birch Run, Michigan, which is sort of an out of the way kind of place, but they had this big mega show with all these different guys there. And Animal got in the ring to give a tribute to Hawk. And looking at that, I was there when, they were inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And so I was able to quote things that both Joe and Paul Ellering said at those events. And they were supposed to be honored at the Cauliflower Alley Club back in April. And so obviously they'll still be honored, next year should the convention actually happen. But it'll just be Ellering up there. Or maybe we'll get a special appearance from his son or his brothers, his two brothers that wrestled, right? Of course, one most famously is Johnny Ace, who ended up as a general manager. And it's just so much work to do, right? There's all the photos to gather. It's all these different things. To put together a package, and a guy like that deserves a package. He doesn't just deserve an obituary. And encourage people to go read my books too, right? Obviously, the Tag Teams book has a ton on the Road Warriors.
Yeah, Greg has one of your many books, of course. And
Griff's read one or two of them, I think.
I've got them on tape, I think.
Okay.
Very cool. Well, we got questions here. One question came in from me, and I'm going to try to see if I can get you guys to answer it too. That's the one I was referring to there, Producer Dom. Which is the one tag team the Road Warriors never wrestled that you wish they did? Is there anyone that comes to mind for you guys that you'd love to see them work against and they didn't?
I believe they never had a chance to wrestle the British Bulldogs, Dynamite and Davey Boy.
That's a good point because Dynamite got hurt. That was late '86, I think, right? Hurt his back.
Right off the top of my head, that would have been a match I'd love to see. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the one that leaps off the page of me.
Okay. Road Warriors Midnight Express. Great matches there.
Well, but it's because the Midnight Express could take such great bumps, right?
Yes.
You had Cornette running around at ringside like a madman. Like all those things just made those matches more exciting. It wasn't like two beastly teams going against each other. You had two contrasting styles that really made them more exciting.
I mean, for me, it would be probably a dream tag team match. It would be, the Road Warriors against Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. Just kind of that different styles and brutality. I would have loved to have seen that.
That may have happened in the WWE when Funk was wrestling as Chainsaw Charlie.
Really?
I could be wrong. Yeah.
Anybody out there can add to that because I don't remember that. That would have been watered down. It wouldn't have been ECW style at all. Like it would have been watered down for sure.
I'd like to see the Road Warriors what they do with the Young Bucks. That would, talk about a decimation, a squash job. I don't think they would sell for the Young Bucks. I'm just a feeling I have
for sure. And Road Warriors against the Mongols. Another, if we could go back in time and have everybody young. That would have been a
lots of funky hair in that one, then.
Oh, absolutely. But great memories. We can go on and on with this stuff. I'm just kind of scrolling through. Dominic, anything else that you see there? Dominic says, tag team wrestling truly special back in the day. Wish I was alive during the road. Yeah, Dominic's a young man. Dominic's only 23. So I didn't introduce him to wrestling until I believe 2000 at 3 years old. And his mother, my sister, almost hit me over the head with a chair. And I had him watching Raw at the age of 3 years old. So it didn't enamor his sister, my sister, to me when it came to that. And he loves wrestling to this day. He's here producing the show, helping us produce it. Any other final thoughts on the Road Warriors before I let you gentlemen go? And it's a sad week, but, it brings joy only to the fact of how much history they created and how much of a legacy they will always have in the annals of pro wrestling history.
You know, some of these characters, these workers, these icons leave such a lasting impact. You know, these wrestlers that are on my wall, every time I hear of one of them passing, it affects me. I feel sad, a little bit depressed. But when I heard of Joe dying, like, I was seriously depressed. I had to choke back tears. And then I was on social media and I saw, you know, grown men my age crying, like tears down their face. This guy really left an impact when his passing meant that much to, you know, that many people around the world. The fact that he's gone. I had a chance to drive about 3 hours away from here. I'm in Nova Scotia to Prince Edward Island. He was making an appearance last fall, and they weren't sure if his plane was going to arrive, and I would have had to drive all night to get back to work. So I didn't go. Turns out he did make an appearance, and I didn't get a chance to meet him. And now that's just eating me alive that I didn't get a chance to meet him before he was taken from us. So.
Well, this one really affected a lot of people. When the news broke this week, it was really overwhelming, and the tributes and the posts, and it was a big one. It was a big loss, especially because it happened so suddenly. He had just celebrated his anniversary with his wife, and it was that night. Does anyone know the cause of death yet? Has anything been reported?
Nothing's actually been out there official yet, but I mean, it's pretty easy to speculate that it was probably very sudden, heart-related, or whatever it is. They were apparently at a casino, and it was late at night. So obviously there's access to care too, and who knows how it's all affected by the pandemic and all those things too.
Yeah.
I did meet Joe a number of times. He was a rather gruff fellow. He was intimidating. He didn't suffer fools lightly. And yet, so those are my experience with him as a journalist, right? And so it's not quite adversarial, but I'm not sure he was open arms to journalists. But then what was really touching to me was seeing so many fellow wrestlers talking about how helpful he was to them, right? That he really saw this as a team business. That, you know, as great as Hawk and Animal were and how they never seemed to sell for anybody, they still recognized it was a team business, and then they needed those jobbers to beat up, or they needed the guys to make them look competitive, and that they gave back in many ways to the business. So that's probably what I'll keep with me, is that, yeah, he left a real legacy, not just what we saw in the ring, but obviously behind the scenes, and his son who played, you know, in the NFL, all those different things.
Yeah. Well, there's a comment from Edward Whipkey. Match I would love to see: Road Warriors against Brody and Hanson.
I don't think that would stay in the ring very long.
I don't think so. That would be a good one to watch, though.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for coming on and sharing your memories. Any final thoughts, Griff? I mean, it was a sad week, and we're going to bring you back because I love your collection is great right there, and it's great to meet you and face to face finally.
Well, I'll leave you with this. Every time we lose a legend in our sport, and they're on my wall here, it doesn't take away from the pain of the family that lost a loved one. But I get to every time I come down here with a drink in my hand, and I get to look at Mike and Joe and Paul with them there, and it's like they're with me every day. Yeah. So it kind of is the legacy that.
And there's plenty of video for fans to enjoy on YouTube and everywhere else. And a big loss, Road Warriors, Hawk being lost several years ago, and Animal we lost this week. Greg, always a pleasure. And I'll be speaking to you very, very soon, probably in the next couple of days. I'll, we're joined at the hip, Grip, because of the book that's coming out.
Right. Yeah.
And with mattmemories.com, I mean, in the planning stages of being released and all the work he does with Slam Wrestling. Greg and I converse pretty often, don't we, Greg?
Yep. And sometimes you call when I'm having lunch and I get annoyed, but it's all good. So it's a different time zone when you're down there in Tennessee. So
yes, it is. Down here,
well, I'm glad this worked out. The Road Warriors were great. It was always what a rush to see them. For sure. We'll miss them, but as you said, the legacy lives on.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. We'll talk to you both real soon.
Thanks, John.
All righty. Greg and Griff from Canada talking about the Road Warriors. And, wow, lots of comments coming in here. Let's bring producer Dominic on. Dominic, even though you never got a chance to meet them and you were, of course, very young, they were great.
I thought the Dark Side episode last season was great about them.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to open it up for some comments here. But the first thing, we have to welcome a sponsor to the program. And it's Manscaped. Manscaped.com. And Manscaped does a lot of promotional marketing with wrestling podcasts. And they're doing a ton of advertising. So we were reached out to by them. And so now we're going to talk about a product that, first of all, Dom, I mean, you were a Manscaped customer.
I was.
How many months now have you been? Because you heard it on Jim Cornette's podcast, didn't you, with the great Brian Last?
Yeah, I've started in May, and I haven't looked back since. I absolutely love it. I use every so often the Lawnmower 3.0. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'm very hairy with the Italian genes, so this comes in handy.
So the Manscaped comes in handy for you. I mean, the Manscaped, it's a redesigned electric trimmer. Their engineering team spent 18 months, Dominic, developing that device. And they perfected the greatest trimmer ever. The Manscaped, manscaped.com. There's a special offer going on right now for any of the viewers here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight Live. You go to manscaped.com and you I'm going to show you the website real fast. So we will do that. Let me share my screen with everybody. Let's take a look. There it is, manscaped.com. And they are now sponsoring this program. As long as you guys go out there and purchase one of them, it'll be a wonderful thing. So manscaped.com, they're going to give you 20% off. Whose promo code do we use? Use mine. It's PWS. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping with any products you buy there with the code PWS. Manscaped.com, MANSSCAPED. That's 20% off with free shipping. Manscaped.com, promo code PWS. And if you're listening to me speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Dominic, you got other products there that they've sent us? I left New York too quickly. I didn't get my box of stuff from Manscaped, but you did.
I did. I got the toner. Let's see if we can get it in.
So what does the toner do?
Every so often, if you need a fresh up down there, you could just use that.
A little spritz, I guess?
Yes. And if you work outside, if you get sweaty easy, that's always good to carry around with you.
Uh-huh.
And then at the beginning of the day, you should use the deodorant.
Oh, okay. So there's a deodorant, there's the trimmer. I mean, they have so many products at manscaped.com. Go there now. PWS is the promo code, 20% off. We'd like to welcome them here to the show. And, if we show them results, then they'll be a long-term advertiser for us. So welcome, Manscaped, and we hope that our viewers out there who have not had the experience yet of manscaped.com can pick one up at their website and mention PWS in their promo code and 20% off, free shipping, and then you guys can be clean as a whistle, so to speak. We have other things coming up. Anyone else has any comments to say before we wrap it up? We got another 5-10 minutes here at the program. I know there's a lot of comments coming in. A lot of people welcoming producer. There's no demonstrations on the air, Richard. Ain't happening. Don't worry about that. It ain't going to happen. Not at all. But as we're here with Dominic right now, we have a couple of things to talk about here. Dominic, hang out with us. We want to let you know that we have a line of merchandise out right now, and right now at there you go. You're wearing the shirt, and at tinyurl.com/PWS store on the PWSpod.com on Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Then and now we're in the middle of gearing up for the 1990 convention. There you go. Manscaped.com, promo code PWS. Thank you, Mike. The convention T-shirts are now available. This is the original T-shirt from 1990, and we have relaunched them. And not only are they in black now, there's a nice turquoise one. There's a nice green. That's almost like a Christmas colory one. But the Wrestling Fans Fantasy Weekend, the first annual convention, T-shirts are now available at our wonderful site with Christian Theodore and his company, tinyurl.com/PWS store. And you can pick up your T-shirts. We have the George from Lindenhurst shirts still there. We have the radio shirts. We have Matt Memory shirts. We have caps as well. There is not a promo code for PWS merch. However, there is free shipping if your purchase is $50 or more. We're hopefully going to have another sale coming up soon because we have other items that are being developed right now. But right now, the shirts are up. If you haven't gotten your shirts yet, there's the Pro Wrestling Spotlight shirt in different colors. There's the Holy Cow, That's Good shirt in honor of George from Lindenhurst, and the other George from Lindenhurst shirt. We have one for the podcast. This is my favorite one because it has the logos of all the radio stations that Pro Wrestling Spotlight was on. We have this gentleman who thought that was good as well. And we also had some folks posting, especially one gentleman who was in St. Croix of the Virgin Islands, and he had the George from Lindenhurst T-shirt wrapped over his chair, overlooking the wonderful ocean there. So other things to talk about here. We also have our huge auction going on. Dominic, have you checked out the auction yet at Facebook.com? Did you check out all the vintage wrestling stuff that we have?
It's amazing what you got. The posters, the magazines, both signed and unsigned, stuff from the NWA, WCW, WWF. It's just, I'm blown away.
We're getting a lot of stuff. I mean, and your uncle's now in the buying and selling wrestling merchandise stuff. Hold on one second. I'm going to show you what we picked up this week. I'm going to just show you. It's not out there yet, but you guys are going to love this. So I'm going to get up and bring some of this new stuff over.
We'll be on standby while he gets the stuff.
Yeah.
But you could see people are loving the Pro Wrestling Spotlight shirts. I'm not saying
this is just what I got this week, all right? And this stuff hasn't even been put up for auction yet. Check this out. This beauty. This is the very first issue of Wrestling Review. It's in a protective cover. We're going to be putting that up over the next couple of weeks. But also, I've been scouring and looking for magazines from the olden days, and this one from Inside Wrestling. There's a picture, and I'm on the cover. Dom, see this little guy right here?
It's a little hard. Oh, there we go. I see it now.
I am in the corner, and this magazine has a article on the convention, WFIA convention from Atlanta, Georgia, 1974, and
look at that handsome young gent.
There we go. So this week I picked up this. It's an old wrestling review, but I'm getting wrestling magazines here almost every day that I'm just scouring the internet.
You got a lot.
With the Sheik. This is just, I'll check this stuff out. Look at this. Ring Wrestling 1965. Another one from 62. Here, I couldn't find this for a long time. You see this one here? See that cover picture of Superstar Billy Graham?
Yeah, he's a bloody mess. Look at that.
I shot that. That was my picture.
Wow.
Chief J. Strongbow. And, so much more. I'm just having a really good time. And this is the type of stuff. This is not for me because I'm putting this stuff up on our auction site. And we got some vintage wrestling magazines this week. This is just the new stuff that hasn't been put up on the site yet. But as your people are still there, you guys still there watching? Yes, that's good. I'm going to go back now and show you a few things that are actually out for this auction.
He's getting more stuff, folks.
That's right. Hang tough for me. Because right now available at the facebook.com John Rezzi's Vintage Wrestling Auctions, the very first issue of Wrestling World Magazine. Check this bad boy out. A ticket from 1971 to go into the Philadelphia Arena, a TV taping promoted by the Keystone Wrestling Club. A digest book from 1973. People are bidding on that stuff right now. So there are bids on all this stuff. And then with our friend Terry Kent in Virginia, look at this pristine issue of Wrestling Review Magazine from June 1962. Check this out. When I was a little kid, I ordered this in the mail. This was the TV Wrestling Review album, and it's filled with nothing but pinups, including, look at this, Klondike Bill, Dominic. Klondike Bill.
Very handsome.
Can you believe it? Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. And so this is really like in mint condition, and it's available this week.
June of 1962, same age.
Yeah, look at this one. This is from May of 1951.
Wow.
That's available this week. Here's another one. This is a February 1952 official wrestling magazine.
Wow.
But, out of all of them, and look at this is one of my favorite covers of all time, Wrestling Review, with Freddie Blassie biting John Tolis right on the forehead. So, Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Oh, look, there's another little item I have right here. Signed in pink, Bret the Hitman Hart. Another Wrestling Review from fall of 61. Check this bad boy out from 1964. There's another one, Wrestling World. The very first issue of Wrestling World magazine. Where are you going to get this stuff? People are loving it. Facebook.com, John Arezzi's Vintage Wrestling Auctions. So is that a plug or not?
That was good.
Every week I'm finding the stuff, and if I turn the camera around, you're going to see boxes. I have a box filled with 60s magazines, 70s magazines, and I'm collecting many magazines from the 50s. So I buy it, I put it up there. I don't gouge anybody on the price because it's really about sharing the memories. It's about sharing the memories from back in the day. For many of the people who follow what we do, it's all about history to me, and it's been such a great time, getting these packages in the mail, plus my own collection, which is there's just so much out there. So I hope you're all enjoying it. And if there's anything that you're specifically looking for, let me know. So that's really about it. So I lost my notepad, so there's nothing else for me to talk about other than the plugs I just gave. It's at 6:03 p.m. We had a really good show today, and it's good to see you, Dominic. I haven't seen you. I've been gone, 2 weeks?
You've been gone. It feels like longer, but it's probably only been 2 weeks.
Yeah. A lot of comments coming in. I'm just going to, let's see. Marshall says, got to get Stephen P. New to sponsor the show. Yeah, that would be great. I love Stephen. I love what he does. And he's obviously Jimmy Cornette's a consigliere. That's another thing. That's right. That's the other thing I wanted to plug was our YouTube channel. We're streaming live on YouTube, but John Arezzi's Matt Memories on YouTube now. Please subscribe. You could see the only official 1991 Weekend of Champions video right now. Dominic, have you watched it yet?
I have not watched it yet, but I'm going to get
Well,
to
that's
it.
your homework assignment for this week. When you go to YouTube, you go to John Arezzi's Matt Memories, and it was video that your mommy shot, actually, and
Wow.
your daddy, of the convention in 91. And there's footage of your mother with Ric Flair, Rick Rude,
Wow.
Buddy Rogers is in there, Superstar Billy Graham, Bruno, Cornette with the auction. Thank you, Mike. It was, it was really great for me to watch it after all this time and to see that video, especially just the stars in that room, the legends in that room, and Woman, and there were so many. I mean, it was just kind of what a convention it was, and we're going to be releasing T-shirts from that convention as well coming up. Yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff, Dom. As you say, it's called the bubble, and I'm back in the wrestling bubble. I'm so excited that the book cover is done. I was able to share that with you, right? You like the book cover of Matt Memories?
I do. It's absolutely beautiful.
And I'm going to be
able to story.
Yeah, the book is done and the cover's been picked. We're going to be able to share that cover with you soon because ECW Press is going to be releasing it online.
Oh, nice.
In the next couple of weeks. So you'll be able to see a sneak preview of that cover, and I think everyone's going to be blown away by it. So anyway, it's been quite the run here. We're enjoying ourselves. I got some news about some upcoming shows. Dave Meltzer. Everybody knows Dave, right?
Yeah.
Dom, you know Dave. You haven't met him personally, but you know who he is.
Yeah.
We finally got a commitment from Dave to come on the show, and it'll be after the finals of G1 in Japan, and that's going to take place middle of August, I believe. I'm looking at my calendar here. October 16th, whatever that Friday or Saturday is. We may do a Friday night special with Dave, or it could be a regular Saturday show, but he has committed to come back on the show. We're always working on trying to get guests, and had a really cool conversation today early with George Napolitano. So I'm trying to get George on to share his memories here as well with everybody. We enjoy being able to broadcast with you, and Dominic, and your schedule is like you're working all next week. When is this seasonal job finally end for you?
It ends on Columbus Day, and I'm hoping to find something relatively quickly after that.
Yeah.
So
Dan Brown. Yes, patreon.com/Arezi for full, complete episodes of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Then and now. Who's this guy?
I don't know. I just blocked him.
Yeah, please block him and remove him for eternity.
Yeah.
Look at all these comments he made, this guy.
Yeah, he has nothing better to do on a Saturday night. Right?
What an asshole.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's blocked. Block him for good.
He is blocked.
He's not allowed to come back and just tarnish what we're trying to do here. Trolls have nothing better to do. Very, very, very true. Any final comments, Dominic?
It was good to be back on Pro Wrestling Spotlight Live, and I look forward to joining you in the future.
Yes, you will. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And it's been a sad week. And if we could bring a little bit of a smile to your face as we have reminisced about Road Warrior Animal, who we lost this week, and covering the news, we will be here each and every week to try to do our very best and at least entertain you for an hour. So until next week, when we talk more wrestling with you, this is Mr. Wrestling, as they call me sometimes. And if you listen to the podcast, I'm now John Anthony Arezi. So now I have 3 names.
Oh, nice.
CWS Pod, the new episode's coming out this weekend. And so until next week, this is John Arezi saying so long for now. We'll talk to you next week.